Hello, and welcome to another Satisfactory video. Today I'm going to show you my method for making a base, and this isn't, the correct way or the incorrect way. This is just how I have decided to set up my bases in this video game. If you do it a different way, that's awesome. Leave some suggestions in the comments. But if you are completely lost and have no idea what to do, this could give you a couple of ideas to get yourself started. And if you're interested in guides like these, be sure to subscribe. I have plenty of other guides on my channel and plan on making many more in the future. So, let's go ahead and get started. So how I normally start a new game is I set up an Icky gross looking starter base kind of like this, with little regard for, it's organized, but it's not, things don't have to be perfectly aligned. And this is because what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up this so I have the materials to build my actual base. The sooner you set up automation for something, the more materials that you're going to accrue. So I set up this iron plate thing first. Then while I'm working on other things, iron plates are just going to naturally accrue. So not being too picky in the beginning with how the base looks, just making something that is functional is going to save you a lot of time in the long term, because if you're waiting for enough concrete to concrete everything immediately, you're going to be waiting a long time. So definitely set up automation as soon as possible. And don't worry about the look of your first base, because what you can do, and what I normally do, is tear all this down and start working on my, quote-unquote good permanent base, which is organized and pretty and beautiful and lovely, which I will show you next. So, a couple hours in, and as you can see, the starter base, which was over there, is pretty much torn down. And I've moved to this type of construction. So let's try and jump down without dying. Let's try and jump down without dying. Cool. So here is my new storage area. Your storage area is going to be pretty key. Early on, what I normally do is before I have access to signs, I just have a little belt coming out like this, and that kind of shows what's in the box. So we got all of our early game materials. And these are actually all the same materials from the starter base, but I organized them a little bit nicer, and we're all on nice foundations. We're starting to make it look a little bit cool. So something that you might be asking yourself is, how much of each thing do I need to make? And usually I find it 1, sometimes 2 machines is plenty. I have this iron rod machine, and this is an earlier save, but in my final save, this iron plate machine has sustained me throughout the entire game because I get 20 per minute, and they go in a box, and they continuously accrue. So usually having one machine at 100% efficiency is, what you want. So how do we get to 100% efficiency? Well, what I like to do is I say, okay, Mr. Rotor Machine, what do you need to be 100% efficient? And it'll tell you right here, for 4 per minute, you need 20 iron rods and 100 screws. So we work back from that. Our screw machines, they make 40 per minute. So to get 100 screws, I need 40 plus 40 is 80, plus another 20 is 100. So I need 2.5 screw machines in order to make the screws necessary. And if I need 2.5 screw machines, these need 10 each, so 10 times 2.5 is 25. So we go back over here. What do we need for rods again? Okay, 20 plus the 25 for the screws, that's 45. So we go back here and say, okay, our rods, so remember we need 45 rods, so 15 goes into 45 3 times. So we need 3 machines making rods. If we have these buildings set up in this way, we will be 100% efficient in if we ensure that we have enough ingots. So, barring a mistake, if there's low production or this machine dips below 100% or, I guess 99%, that means we need to add more ingots. So how do I organize my miners and smelters? Well, what I normally do is I usually stick to, whatever nodes that I have in the beginning, and I'll, power shard them and upgrade the belts as necessary. You can also, eventually upgrade your miners, so the Mark II is going to double your output, the Mark III is going to double the output of the Mark II. You can also, of course, power shard, that will give you more mining capacity. And then also you can upgrade your belts, so Mark I belts are 60, Mark II belts are 120, and then Mark III is going to be 270. So you can get a lot out of, using the same nodes and the same miners. Something that I also make sure that I have is I have plenty of space for smelting. So down here I kind of have this blocked off or earmarked for, adding more smelters. So I can add more this way, and then you can upgrade these belts, which will add more capacity. So as I add more buildings upstairs, all I have to do is add more smelters and upgrade the belts. And then worst case, I could just add another belt if I need to. Something else that I use quite often, more so for my bigger builds, is the Satisfactory Tools production website. And we could just use it for our rotors example. So I set it to rotors, and then let's go to 4 per minute. And this will actually give you a little bit of a flowchart for what you need, including the ore that is needed. So you saw that for run rotor assembler, starting from the front to the back, I need 2.5 screw constructors, 3 iron rod constructors, 25 of those rods going into the screws, and 20 of the rods going into the rotors themselves. And that will give me the 4 rotors per minute. And I usually don't keep track of how many ingots that I'm making, I just kind of add ingots as I need them. But this is definitely a very good tool, especially if you're building something a bit more complicated. And I'll leave a link for this in the description. You can also set, the inputs that you have. If you have any alternate recipes, you can set those as well. So this is a very good tool, especially when you're building more complicated things like turbo motors. So those were a couple tips on how I set up my base. These are by no means the correct way to set up a base. You can do however you want. Take some of these suggestions, leave some of them, whatever gives you the most enjoyment. So, if you like what you saw today, I'd love it if you subscribed. If you're looking for other guides similar to these, I have a couple more on my channel, and plan on making more in the future. I also stream on Twitch, twitch.tv/BillyTheDoor. I'd love it if you'd come stop by. And with that, that's all for me. Take care.